Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Angela Tucci.
Thank you, and good morning. So how cool to be able to spend the morning with some astronauts, right? Was that fun? I don't know about you, but I mean, growing up, I was a budding young physicist of all things, and my dad would bring home these great pictures from JPL, you know, back when you would, now 40 years ago, 40 years ago, of pictures of Saturn and Jupiter, so how cool to see some astronauts. So today, I want to ask you to get you kind of started on this concept of metabolism. So let me ask you, what's the metabolism of your company? Seriously, what's that metabolism? I mean, think about how we measure companies and the successes of companies. Profits, revenue, bookings, operating expense. Does that really convey what your companies are about and their likelihood for success? So what's the metabolism? Is it a 20-something-year-old? I'm trying to look in the audience. 20-something? How about middle age? Are you in that crisis mode? Gone out and bought something maybe? We've done a little bit of that, trying to reinvigorate? Or is it kind of with that walker? Going slow, kind of in that decline. I mean, think about metabolism. What creates metabolism? Your people? Yeah, your people, the culture, the practices. Are those practices weighty? Are they loss-filled? Are they a slog? Are they a headwind? And then the systems. Those things in concert contribute to metabolism. And I heard somebody shout out energy. You're right. Metabolism is that conversion of food into energy, and it has this other little piece associated with it, the elimination of waste. How good are we at eliminating waste? Well, if you look at, in the back we have here the cycling team for Trek. I mean, think about the people that they have in the culture. I mean, these are world-class athletes at the top of their game. And they've got a spirit, an esprit de corps. And they have practices that they continue to evolve and get better and better and better at. And then they've got tooling. They've got their bikes, their power meters. They've got this wonderful set of technology that envelops them that continues to get them to go faster and faster, get better and better. Do you show up each day as a professional athlete at work with, I heard a chuckle, working on getting better and better? I always would say to my teams, you're professionals, we do pay you, right? So thinking about that metabolism. Now, we heard on stage about many of the catalysts for why we actually have to consider that metabolism or our ability to change and adapt. Because certainly our customers are changing. We are changing as individuals, as customers, but certainly our customers are changing in their expectations of us. The second thing that we see changing quite a bit is we're being asked to do things that are very much about adding new business models, new contexts. Probably many of you have a consumer business you're rolling out, a new mobile application you have to be concerned about. We're adding further complexity to our businesses. And then there's not a CIO that I talk to, maybe many of you in the audience are faced with this. How do you attract and retain great talent? Mike mentioned it this morning. There's not a conversation that I have with any of you that doesn't also include, I gotta create an environment that gets the best and brightest to stay with our companies, to come to our companies, to be part of our teams, to create that esprit de corps. But it turns out we've got quite a headwind in terms of increasing this metabolism. I mean, how many of you have companies that were 20th century founded? Anybody just only in the 21st century here? Only the 21st century. So if you haven't come from just the 21st century, we already have a tremendous amount of headwind in the system that envelops us from that decade and century before. We have a planning cycle, a cadence that's associated with it, a budgeting cycle that's associated. We have command and control practices. We have things that we are faced with that are drawing us back into those Walker moments that we need to be cognizant of in order to really affect our companies to become much more agile and adaptable. And in fact, if we don't, we continue to do the things that just take the wind out of our sails. We build software that people don't use. Buttons and configurations and further features that nobody ends up using. It's startling to see some of these stats as to just how much is kind of bloated. And I'm sure you know this, but then when we know what the most important work is to go do, we don't actually do it. We do the work that keeps us employed because there's that squeaky executive who actually gets to prioritize his or her work ahead of everybody else's. And that just also sucks the life out of us. And then we build products that ultimately, and we build systems that ultimately don't get to the goals of people. We've built products that are actually for process, but not for humans. That's what happened in the 20th century. We didn't build products for people. We built products to automate process. So enough, right? Enough of the pain. We need to make some changes. So what are those changes? Well, as a topical area, we call it business agility. The ability to sense and respond as the natural course of business. Wouldn't it be nice? This adaptability where we're sensing what's happening in the market and we have the ball bearings of our employees and our systems and our processes such that we can pivot. That's the Holy Grail. It's been the Holy Grail for a long time. It just so happened in the 20th century, the pace of change was slow enough that we didn't have to worry about this adaptability being much more in our DNA, in our living organism of a company. We could do it on a 5-year, 10-year cadence, and now we have to do it on a month, a quarter, a year. We have to get that cycle going faster. And to do so, well, it's very important that we think holistically of that entire system. Tooling isn't going to change a company. Products are not going to change a company. People, practice, and the tooling together have to work in concert to overcome that system that was foundational years and years and years ago to really affect and create that environment to thrive and to adapt. That's what business agility is about. And it's creating really that virtuous cycle such that we can take ideas, innovations, things that our people want to go build and do and believe are the things that our customers and our employees need, but we stand in the way because we've put so much process into that loop that it's a slow slog. Well, I'm here to explain ways in which we cannot make it a slog, that we can accelerate the time, basically accelerate the time between ideas and outcomes and create that cycle to go faster and faster and faster by eliminating waste, by being much more cognizant of what our customers need and want and the pace at which they can absorb, and to do that in a way that connects to the strategy and key outcomes of our business. That's what business agility is about, and in fact, that's so much of what we've talked about at the keynote Mike brought up, because we have to adapt not just to basically endure or last. We have to be able to adapt to thrive in this new world that we live in. And I know you're faced with it, absolutely faced with it on a daily basis. Unfortunately, the moniker we often see is it's like do more with less. No, that's the wrong motto. I understand it's the constraints in which we live in, but it's not the motto that's going to help us be successful in this 21st century, in this new economy that is so application driven. And so what do? I know many of you are practitioners, you're users of our products. What products am I talking about here that we put to work to at least lay that foundation for your success? Well, first and foremost, PPM, Project and Portfolio Management. The planning part of the cycle, the execution of key projects, and then Agile Central for the building and delivering of software, and then service management for bringing that back around in terms of customer feedback to create that cycle from strategy to execution and back around. And I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing in each of those, because I know that's part of where you're here. You want to see what's new and how we're actually putting to work these principles of people, practice, and solutions together into our products. So, all three product areas have had innovations in those three categories that I mentioned, of people making it much more accessible for you and your user community, for improving the practices that are eliminating waste so that we're not slow, and then updating and doing things for the look, the feel, so that we're creating that environment that your workers come to work and say, yes, I'm excited about using this product. I'm excited about using this tool. It feels like a modern experience. This is a company that has a high metabolism. And so let's first talk about PPM. One of the things that we've worked very hard on is actually based on your feedback. How do we make it extensible, not just to the career project manager, but to that tour of duty person, the person that gets handed the project like, I don't know what to go do. What do I use? How do I get my work done? So we've created a very lightweight part of the application that makes it simple for that tour of duty project manager to get up and started very rapidly and be successful. And the second thing we did is we said, okay, you've come back to us and said so much of project management is not about activity management, it's about people management. It's about the collaboration of the team. It's about the conversations and making that more accessible for the engagement with that broader community of people that we have to work with to get things done. Well, we've added now collaboration so that you can have those ad hoc, quick conversations and see the threads and be able to absolutely engage when you need to with that broader community. And then the look, the feel, modernizing that, such again that the tiles, for instance, that you see here, make it very straightforward at a glance to feel like it's that application that people want to go to get their jobs done, which is pretty neat. So a lot of investment, and I encourage you to talk to around the floor with the product managers on this. We've got also a robust roadmap moving forward that I think will help really rekindle so much of what you need to do within our products to get work done and be successful within your organizations. Now, secondly, around what did we do to really think about people with regards to Agile Central? So Agile Central for planning and basically delivering software projects and products. The developers, you said to us, hey, the developers need an easier, simpler experience. And so we responded with adding detail pages that you see from one page, quickly get to the details of that page without ever moving between pages, simplifying the experience, and then making it configurable, because not everybody uses the same functionality and wants the same fields and the same data. So great, let's add that configurability right on the page by individual. I mean, this is a SaaS product. We know what you use. We know what you do. So we've seen the pages that get used most frequently and what the click-through is that you need next. Let's just surface that all at the same time. So very simple, very easy to use. The second thing we did is we said, okay, navigation. Likewise, why can't you just customize the navigation to what you need? So we've got personalized navigation for your users to be, and your developers, so they're just, streamline, get work done so they can stay in their IDEs and build software. And then the look, the feel, really continuing to revamp that so it is modern and it's attractive to the user community, because you're trying to recruit those developers to come work for you, right? So let's give them a tooling that they're proud to use and that they want to tell their friends about. And then service management. So here's a situation, gosh, You got people who are on the help desk here, anybody? You imagine being a help desk worker who comes in the morning and says, oh, is it going to be a bad day? Because I'm going to just get this deluge of tickets coming at me and things I got to go fix and work to be done. I mean, that is a tough job. So we added a capability in service management called weather. And I sometimes say, it's so that people know whether they're going to have an S-storm and it's going to be a bad day, or it's going to be cloudy, or maybe it's going to be a sunny day. This was one of the things to have empathy for the people who have to have that frontline experience with people who are typically unhappy. Great, let's give people a sense of the weather for the day. Then for tickets, let's not make lists of tickets that just make it look like this huge pile. Rather, let's make it very simple for people to be able to pick the work that they want to do and make it very simple to see at a glance and get additional context on those tickets. Again, this is around the practices, focusing on the practices of the way people want to work, not the process that we automated in the 20th century. And then the look, the feel, modernizing it as well so that the experience for those help desk people, for that service analyst of the front line, is much more tailored to the way they want to work and makes them proud to use the products. So it's been very much a focus of ours to make sure that we're continuing to evolve the products in such a way that it's making it much more accessible, much easier to use, and yet maintaining the robust capabilities. So don't be mistaken, just because it looks simpler and easier, you have all of the robust enterprise class features that you would get through the generations of the products, such that you still have all the capabilities that you need, but we're surfacing them in ways that really reflect the humanity, if you will, and increase that metabolism for your people. Now, excited to talk about a product that was just a twinkle in our eye back in April. So, in April of this year, so that something that you also told us is that there's structured work that you do within a ticketing system, or you do within a project management system, or you do within a software development system. But there's also the stuff that falls on the outside of that. That's ad hoc, it's not structured, it's not persistent teams, there's not long planning cycles. It's, I gotta get a board deck done. I need to get content created in a presentation, and I've got 10 days in which to get it completely put together and produced. Now, many of you have been in this reactive cycle, I'm sure, with your bosses. I need something, I need a report, I need analytics, I need a presentation. And you, on the fly, have to figure out, gosh, who actually has that work, that content, those pieces of the puzzle? You've got Outlook, and you've got SharePoint, you've got text messages that are coming in, you've got stuff on your hard drive, you've got stuff on a shared drive. You're trying to aggregate that all together. You spend so much of your time just trying to find the stuff versus building the content. We do that a lot. And in fact, what happens? While we're doing that, more work comes at us. So we are starting more work than we're finishing. So we created what we call Catchfly. It's a beta product. You can find it in the Accelerator Zone. I encourage you to take a look at this because it is for all of that ad hoc, difficult to get done, requires you to coordinate and aggregate and filter context to create, in this case, a piece of work that would be a presentation, but it could be any piece of work, and get it done. Start finishing work versus starting tons of work. Get work done. So Project Catchfly has been really exciting to see our increased metabolism to be able to deliver on something that, like I said, was a twinkle in our eye back in April, and now is a beta product here that you can basically start using today and give us some feedback that we can iterate to bring to market to you early next year. So that's pretty exciting. All right, so I hear about this metabolism from you now. You're saying to yourself, well, oftentimes what do we hit in that world of our 20th century companies? Yeah, but our group needs to still go slowly. I remember there was this concept of some parts of the company need to go slow and some parts need to go fast. Let's not kid ourselves. Everything needs to go faster. It's just a question of how much. And so I'm using the example of the CA mainframe business unit to illustrate that, in fact, even the mainframe team can, will, and wants to go faster. That's not our sacred cow. That's, in fact, one of the best parts of our business, and kudos to Ashok Reddy, the GM for that business, because he actually went forward with an agile transformation before anybody else did, because he wanted to create an environment for his development organization to basically be reinvigorated in meeting the demands that our customers have. And so that agile transformation has delivered new capabilities, fewer defects, less of a backlog when it comes to customer requests, and now an environment where that team is absolutely starting to think of what comes next, what can I do next, and it becomes a recruiting tool and a retention tool. That's fantastic. So I ask you to think about what's that sacred cow that always says, no, we don't need to go any faster, we're fine, and challenge it. Challenge it to go faster because it must. Because if you have parts of your body or parts of your organization that have a slow metabolism, it drags everything else. It really does. It thinks on the entire system. Now, just like you have that sacred cow of we can't go any faster, you probably also have that organization's like, well, we're too cool, we go really fast, we don't need to get any better, we're already the best. Well, look at Team Trek. They adopted CA product to actually improve their communication and collaboration, eliminate the waste from getting feedback from on the bike back to the development organization at Trek. The cyclists, anytime that they're on those bikes, it's a feedback loop, a fast feedback loop. And they want to win. They want to be the best in their industry. They want to be the best cycling team they can be. And they're not resting on we're good enough. So I ask you, as you think about your organizations, maybe it's that mobile team, the consumer business products group, maybe it's that new services group, the ones that get the shiny toys can get better and should get better. Again, we're all professionals. We're all out there to get better and better. So, putting it all together, from a products perspective, we're really infusing our products with the understanding of people and the way that they want to work, the practices to eliminate that waste, and then the product look and feel to create this modern experience so that it's a place that people want to go to get their work done, and continuing to innovate. Now, there's a little catch on this slide too that you may notice, a little play with words. Project to product. We're turning into software companies. If you're not already a software company, much of your business is turning into a software-based business model. The distinction between a product business and a project business is something to really consider. It's different. You're talking about cost accounting over here, and you're talking about assets and roadmaps over here. So the next thing that you're going to see a lot more coming from us at CA is that understanding that of what it means to be a software company, to actually do both. To do both, projects and products. And that consideration that it's an asset, not just an expense, a durable asset that you're building, is part of where we're also taking our roadmap. That whole product life cycle to continue to go faster, and faster, because that's how you're going to win and be adaptable for the future, not just endure. Now, products, as I said earlier, aren't going to fix all the problems. I often will say to people, you can buy the fanciest bike or you can buy the best shoes, and it's not going to make you a racer or a marathon runner unless you train, right? So we're also here to help you in new ways coming from CA, new ways to really help with the culture and the people aspects, the mindset that's required in order to be adaptable. Maybe some of you have heard the term, are you hardwired or soft-wired? Well, or when it comes to change, people will say, whoa, we've always done it this way. You know that group of people. There's probably some of you in the audience too. We're all viscerally concerned when it comes to change, because as primates, if you will, we're all in that concern of, well, change could be bad, it's danger. Well, change we need to embrace. How we go about it and how we help you with that is part of our experience in helping organizations move from this built to last to built to change. Whether it's agile transformation, whether it's coaching, whether it's going from project to product, whether it's going from project portfolio management to product portfolio management, we have the skill set to help you with that adaptation. Because let's be frank, culture eats strategy for lunch, right? Culture eats strategy for lunch. So the best laid plans to change, we absolutely have to help with the cultural mindset. The other thing is around the practices. And whether it's lean or agile or DevOps, most organizations basically are saying, I need new ways in which to work. What are the best practices? Well, we lead in basically having done more transformation work than any other company on the planet, even the consulting firms, in terms of major software transformation. And the ways that we do it is we make it very digestible. So I said we've got to change the system. Well, there's not a reset button for your organizations. I understand that. We understand that. But there are steps that you can take that make it digestible to basically create that grassroots movement to affect overall change and adaptability. So this chart here is designed, I didn't fill it in because it's too many words, and probably in the back you can barely see it. But the notion that you can step through a set of practices that will fundamentally change the way that you work and eliminate that waste, increase that metabolism. So first and foremost is transparency. Wow, that sounded like rocket science. Now, I think we heard about rocket science this morning. Transparency isn't rocket science. It's actually trying to just make visible so we know what commitments we have within an organization. Like, how many of you actually publish your management cadence of meetings and know from the board all the way down to the team level what that looks like and what that scheduling is? And oftentimes I bet your boss changes their meeting calendar and it's like a bowling ball that goes through all of the meetings that sit underneath that meeting. And all the inefficiencies in time spent just rescheduling meetings, that's wasteful. So transparency just allows you to get to the point of being able to have the discussion that says, okay, let's see if we can codify some things so that we can create that system with a virtuous cycle, right? That's efficient and effective. The second thing is work in process. And this, I think, is kind of interesting. So how often does your boss say, you got a little extra time, right? You can do that one extra thing. I know you can. Well, you can do that maybe once, but in a quarter or in a month or in a week, and you have lots of people doing the same thing. So one of the first and foremost things that managers need to do and think about is what's on your plate and what's on my team's plate. But until you actually make it visible, you just don't know. And this is something where it's actually almost cathartic to get in a room and take Post-it notes and say, let's put everything up on the wall and start seeing what it is we've got in flight. And there's the term hidden WIP, hidden work in process, because it's the hidden WIP that kills us. We know the major projects. That's why we're willing to give you more work, because we know the major stuff, you can't be doing anything else. It's the hidden stuff that hurts. So the transparency of work. And then lastly on that, as you just kind of go across that third row, is really the collaborative tools and the visibility on the planning cycle. So again, very programmatic, and and I'm encouraging you to think about just how the lack of transparency, lack of visibility in your organizations actually creates so much waste. Because the other thing I didn't mention, but I'm sure of it, is that the person next to you doesn't know either what you have on your plate, and you vice versa, and you probably didn't tell them. So now that you finish your thing and hand it to them, they're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, and now we got a bottleneck, right? So that's where we start to get into a transformative process with you to say, let's just do some easy, low-hanging fruit. It's not rocket science, but it's incredibly powerful and it requires coordination. And when you get good at that, then you can go to the next step that says, how do I prioritize? And so I see some familiar faces here. You can basically put yourself on this chart and say, where are you in your transformative state, and what comes next? We can have that dialogue with you, and the agility zone behind you can lay out for you kind of what would you do next. Ultimately, where you're trying to get to is to be able to align the business across the various, I'll call them silos or business units or functional teams, to the point that you can get to business outcomes that are optimized. All right, well, so what does that mean? How often does one function have a different set of goals than the other function? Almost always. Yeah, development versus sales, marketing versus sales, operations, development. I mean, it's the whole notion of DevOps, right? Is to actually create a single lens by which we organize our work, which is the customer value. Optimizing is really starting to say, what's the organizing principle and the set of key metrics we're all aligned to? And revenue's too high level a number, but rather the key initiatives, the outcome metrics that we're driving towards, and aligning our cross-functional teams and work to that point. Oftentimes when I talk to CIOs, they'll say, you know, I'm really struggling with the business. I know none of you struggle with the business. It's just puppies and rainbows every day, right? And I said, well, what's your objective and what's their objective? Well, I'm measured on one thing and they're measured on another thing. I said, are you both in business for your customers? Yeah, of course. Okay, great. What can you agree to that's customer value creating that is absolutely going to be a thing that will bring down the walls of all your other metrics and get you aligned with one another? Have that discussion. Because once you can have that discussion, then the rest of it goes by the wayside. So alignment is key, and that's what that number 9 is. Now, looks super cinchy, right? Got it down? You're going to go do it tomorrow? Got it? Okay. No, I'm teasing. It takes some work. But again, it's not rocket science, not multivariable calculus. You don't need to, pivot tables in order to go to do this work. What you actually need to do is get together with cross-functional leaders, your value stream, and have the open and dialogue that really leads you to being a collaborative process, because ultimately you're in business for your customers, your employees, and such. So, to put kind of a finer note on those coming together pieces, we're absolutely here to partner with you to help you be highly effective in this new and changing world. We have to change. If you are hardwired, you will not succeed in this future. And you know those people around you who are hardwired, who don't want to change, we've always done it this way, and they live in fear. That's not this group of people, I know it. You're here to learn, grow, adapt, and adopt and try things and experiment. And as such, we are with you in order to affect change within your organizations through our products and services and transformation consulting efforts, which is, like I said, a little bit different. And you'll start to see much more of the infusion of those 3 themes I mentioned: people, practices, and then the feel and look of our products to modernize them, such that PPM continues to evolve in this changing pace of going from project to product, such that likewise Agile Central is continuing to grow the ecosystem around it and be cognizant also of that product development, and then service management and asset capabilities that continue to recognize that we are moving much more to becoming software-based companies. Because ultimately, when you think about that question I asked you when we started with, about metabolism, be honest. What's the metabolism of your companies? What do you want it to be? And then think about what stands in your way, and as you walk the show floor, Think about the conversations that you want to have, because if you can increase that metabolism, you can create a thriving environment where people want to come to work and they want to come to work with you, and vice versa. And that's, I think, where we ultimately all want to be. We want to be in places that we want to work and that we enjoy the people around us and we feel like we're winning. That's what the focus is of what we're doing with Agile Management and our products. And I use the Michael Phelps example here because there was a person who was at the top of their game, as many of your companies are or have been, and then he went through the rough patch. Right? He got pulled over, he had a little bit of some problems, and he came back in a stunning and phenomenal way. And it was mindset, it was practices, it was the technology around him to get better and better, and a phenomenal result. That's what we're here to help you with, is to get phenomenal results, improve metabolism, and build great products that really affect the adaptability of your organizations. So with that, thank you.